Hello out there, everybody, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Recreation Rendezvous at the junction of nature and play. I am Julie Ramey with the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department, and here in the podcast studio with us today is a very special guest. We have Tracy Bruce with Scholars in Bakehouse with us today.
Hello there. I guess I'm not sure if it's good morning or good afternoon.
It could be any time of the day or night.
Well, hello there. How about that?
I know I have to be very careful about not talking about the weather or it's really hot or it's really cold because hopefully this podcast will be out there in podcast land for forever. But we're coming to you from the City of Bloomington, Indiana Parks and Recreation Department. And one of the things that we love to talk about when we're talking parks and recreation is our Bloomington Community Farmers Market that last year celebrated its 50th season. So a market with some longevity. And Tracy Bruce is here today as one of our prepared food vendors with Scholars in Bakehouse. So let's have the origin story. Scholars in Bakehouse. Where did you come from?
Sure. So, I didn't start it, first and foremost. Lyle and Carrie Feigenbaum started Scholars in Bakehouse. I believe it was 1995. And that started with the Scholars Inn, which is located on North College. It's now kind of surrounded by apartments, but at that point it wasn't. So they started the Scholars Inn brand back in 1995. They did amazing things. They had bakehouses, they had the restaurant, they did a ton of stuff. That is not the bakehouse of today. The bakehouse today is basically a bakery. The retail businesses, restaurants, tough, right? That's a very tough business. And Lyle and Carrie did an amazing job with it for many, many years. I'd known Lyle and Carrie since 1995. I met them then when they were starting up the restaurant. And for quite a few years, Lyle was like, hey man, come and do this thing with us. Well, I loved what I was doing. I'm like, dude, I don't think so. But he hit me at a point about 6 years ago where I worked at a place, loved it dearly. It was great, but a lot of travel. And, you're sitting around the holiday table enough and you hear these stories that your daughters are sharing with other family members. I'm like, I don't remember that. Oh, you're out of town, Dad. Well, then you have this little paradigm shift, right? It's like, okay, maybe I ought to fix that. And then coincidentally, Lyle called. He's like, hey, man, come on, let's do this thing. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, maybe we will. And that's kind of how it all started. We kind of chatted. Lyle and Carrie are very, very passionate about health and fitness. So they're doing the Orange Theory thing at that point. They're just starting that. And they really wanted to focus all their efforts on that. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do the same. Why not?
So, no, I have to ask you then,
Sure.
Do you have a background in restaurant management or bakeries?
No, I don't. Not at all. But kind of indirectly,
Okay.
because I worked for a food distributor. I was VP of sales when I left. So I engaged a lot of restaurants over the years. I'd done that for 25 years. So I invested a lot of time and energy in chefs and working with them in their businesses and I'm trying to get a better understanding of what they were doing. So I never directly managed a restaurant, worked in a restaurant, but I'd been around them enough to say, I think I'm fairly comfortable with this. And honestly, with anything, it's you can really not know the business. You need to have a basic understanding of it. But leadership is the key thing, right? It's not a matter of what you know. It's a matter of who you surround yourself with and what they know. That's the critical part. And I'm incredibly blessed at the Scholars Inn because the staff there is very, very experienced and very committed to what they're doing. They're amazing. So for me to step into that role was just basically getting to know who was there. I mean, that really was all it amounted to. I didn't have to bake anything. And honestly, I still don't bake stuff. I have a team that does that, but I love science. Love it. And that's really what bread is. Bread is science. It's all these different enzymes working together based on temperature. And it's just a myriad of different things. And at the molecular level, what's going on there. So that part I am very passionate about. So, but I still don't bake stuff, right?
So if someone comes up and says, someone out of town,
sure,
and here in Bloomington could very well happen with Indiana University, people not from here, they show up and they say, oh, Scholars Inn. So what is that? What do you produce? What do you make? What do you do?
Sure. So Scholars in Bakehouse, it's obviously a bakery. We bake breads, bagels, cookies, muffins, scones, granola. We do a myriad of different things. But really the focus is about doing it old school, right? It's making things by hand. Do we have some automation? Of course we do. But really, a loaf of bread is still made by hand.
So is that like small batch? Is that kind of
Correct.
what the
It's
name
exactly
for it?
that.
Okay.
That would probably be the kind of little buzzword we'd associate with it as small batch.
Okay.
So that's the part that I'm pretty passionate about, and I'm not going to deviate from that. Could we go buy equipment and produce more product less expensively? Yes, we could. But there's just something about sticking with those traditional processes that keeps the bread the way that it is and the quality there. When people are like, well, what's the secret? And there really is no secret. It's time, patience, letting things ferment, doing things the correct way. If you're trying to make sourdough, you can buy some additives that will kind of give you that sour flavor. You can embed it with vinegar. You can do a myriad of different things to get that flavor. Or you can just let it rest. And that's what we do. We let it rest. It's going to get a 5 or 6 hour ferment. Then it gets formed into a loaf. Then it goes back into a box, gets another lengthy ferment, 2 or 3 hours. I have people at the farmer's market ask, was this made fresh this morning? Absolutely not. No way. You got to be nuts. Because
you didn't get up and
no,
make the bread.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to go to bed because to make a loaf of bread, you're talking 12, 13, 14 hours.
Yeah, like you said, if you do it old school,
yeah.
you mix it up and the dough rises and you punch it and you let it rise and you knead it and you let it rise.
We don't necessarily do that. It goes to a bucket ferment, right? So it just sits in this bucket for an extended period of time. Then it comes out, goes to the bench. Then it is chopped down. We form it. I shouldn't say we, my apologies. The team forms it because as much as I would love to do this, they would kill me if I was on the bench because it is a process and it takes technique and I just don't have them.
I'm sure there's people out there that have chased well-meaning helpers out of their workspaces.
So I think people can relate to that, right? So it is a lengthy process and I kind of lost track of where I was at with that, but that's how you get the good result. It's just giving it time. And that's where kind of we separate ourselves, right? Other small artisanal bakeries can do that. But I promise you, Aunt Millie's can't. I've been in their facilities. I know some of those guys. They're fantastic. They're hitting a different market than we are, right? So, but they can't let things sit for 5 or 6 hours and do those processes because it just doesn't make sense financially for them.
So your business model is going to look a lot different. You have small batches of goods and I'm guessing that unless they're filled with all of the preservatives or frozen or something, they don't stay around forever. So how do you connect your products with people who want them?
Well, so back to the shelf life issue, right? Yeah, that's a huge thing. You could probably buy a loaf of Wonder Bread and sit it on your counter for a good 2 to 3 weeks without any consequence. But it's still going to taste horrible because it's Wonder Bread. I mean, come on. And probably the third ingredient on that statement is going to be sugar. So I mean, come on, you don't want to eat that. But anyway, people do it. It's great. It's fine. I'm not saying it's horrible. I'm just saying it's not for me. But so there's some natural, like ferment. It's called cultured wheat. If you ferment wheat, it's an amazing preservative, right? But it's clean. So we do that with our breads. We add cultured wheat to our bread. So now what we're able to do is basically get 10 days off of a loaf of bread. Now it depends on the time of the year. Right now, 10 years is 10 days is a bit of a stretch. You're probably talking closer to 7 or 8 days comfortably. But in the winter months, yeah. And the sourdough, because of what it is, it can get 2 weeks. Because there's a ton of bacteria going on there. It's good stuff, right? It's good for the loaf, and it's actually good for your gut. And our starters, I don't know the exact age, but it's over 30 years at this point because we bought off the East Coast from the consultant we use. So that's another great thing about our sourdough. It's a very well-established culture. I wouldn't call it old by bakery standards, by European standards, but for me, it's old, right? So there you go.
Well, so how did you end up at the farmer's market?
We've been at the market over 25 years, I think. It's been quite a while. And Lyle and Carrie, when they started the Bakehouse, that was just a very natural thing for them to do because, it basically just moved that bakery to the farmer's market on Saturday. So that's why it was there. And that's why it remains there. For me, the market is different. It's not a revenue stream for me. It generates revenue. Don't get me wrong, it does. But that's not the reason we're there. We're not there to make money. We're there to touch the community, which I think is incredibly important since we no longer have the bakeries. We have people come to our booth every week. You guys are still around. We are around. Now, you're probably consuming our product quite often. You just don't know it. Because if you go to the Uptown Cafe, you're eating our bread. If you go to the farm restaurant, you're eating our bread. Places up in Indy, throughout the Midwest, if you're eating at a restaurant, there's a chance you're eating our bread. So, or eating our granola or our bagels or whatever it may be, we just look different, right? We're less, we're not restaurants anymore. We're just a bakery. And for me, the important thing with that is it's understanding who you are, staying in your lane. We could be more than that, but I don't want to be more than that. I just want to be a bakery, right? Let's just do our thing, right? So the farmers market is great for us to still be touching the community, letting people know we are out there. But that's an important part. But the real reason we're at the market isn't either one of them. It's not revenue and it's not about community. Well, it really is about community. But more importantly, it's about understanding our product. And when we look at developing new products, the market is amazing at that. Because, I've done the focus group thing, right? With a different project. It was a bakery project. I was working with some other guys. We did the focus group thing up in Indianapolis. And they bring in the different personas. They do all this nifty stuff, and it's really great. And it's crazy expensive, but okay, fine. But people are coming in. They're paid to be there, first of all, right? They're not just coming in because they love bread. They're coming in because they've been paid to be there. They get cash at the door, right? So they come in, they spend like 20 minutes with your product, then they leave and they give feedback. Well, that's okay, I guess. But first of all, who just sits around and eats a slice of bread? No one. You need to use it. You need to live with it for a little bit to really get a good understanding whether it's good or bad. So for me, the best thing for me is doing that with the farmers market. When people come to the booth, I always tell them, hey, this is something new. Would you mind trying it? And they'll pay for it. I'm not giving it away. Sometimes we will sample it just to make sure it's something that they're going to enjoy, right? Because I don't want someone to buy a loaf of bread and say, oh my goodness, this was not what I thought and this was horrible, right?
So now I have to ask, have you made anything that just did not go over well?
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. Turmeric and peppercorn bread.
Say that one more time.
Turmeric and peppercorn.
Okay.
Turmeric has some great values to it health-wise. And that peppercorn, some reason, is a vehicle to help get that to your body, right? Because turmeric by itself, I guess, doesn't absorb well in the body. So you add the pepper, that helps it. I'm like, cool, that sounds great because I'm all about healthy. It tasted horrible. It was atrocious. It looked really cool because it's this bright, fluorescent, yellow-looking loaf. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. But it was horribly, horribly bad. So, but you don't know till you try, right?
So you've tried it, you piloted it, didn't go over so well, but
didn't go well at all.
You probably have some success stories too. What's people's go-to? What do they come to you seeking?
Well, our go-to is sourdough, which seems like after COVID or during COVID, everybody started eating sourdough.
Oh, everyone need bread. Yeah.
Everybody, I can't even tell you how many calls we would get. Hey, can we buy some of your starter? No.
Probably kind of proprietary,
well, yeah,
right?
It's like calling KFC and asking for their recipe, right? No, that's not going to happen. But no, we had a ton of calls like that. But the go-to thing for us is sourdough. But there's been other loaves we developed. Like there's right now we're working with a veggie loaf. Now the really cool thing about that is Hiker Farms out of Trafalgar, we buy their peppers that are not exactly pretty. They're great. They may have a little blemish on them from when they were growing, or maybe they got a little long on the vine and they're maybe a little wilty looking. That's the stuff I want because it doesn't have to be pretty. This has to taste good. And generally, if something's a little aged, a little wrinkly, those sugars will build. It's good, right? So I buy their peppers. They can't sell at the market because they just don't look right. And then I put it into the bread, and it makes an amazing bread. So that's one we're wrapping up now on the R&D side. It's actually finished. We're waiting for some packaging to come through, and we'll push that out to Kroger, Fresh Time, the Blooming Foods here in town, of course, and other venues like that. There's a jalapeno cheddar we're doing. There's a myriad of different flavors, but that's the stuff I take to the market because I encourage people, would you mind trying it? No, we love jalapeno cheddar. We'll try that. I said, but here's the thing. You got to be willing to give feedback. You can come back and tell me it's great, fine, but that's not really what I want to hear. I want to hear the bad stuff. Because that's how it gets better, right? Even as people, you need some criticism, right? Because if you don't get that, then if everybody just tells you you're a great guy, and okay, well, that doesn't help you.
Then you'd still be eating Wonder Bread.
Exactly right, right? No, but so I always encourage folks, say, hey, try this, and you have your core customers at the farmers market, because you see them every week, right? Hey, how you doing? Things like that. But so. That is just such a huge value to us in developing new product because these folks actually take it home. They live with it for a week. They try it on many different applications, not just simply trying a slice of bread. They'll make a grilled cheese. They'll make French toast. They'll do whatever with it. And a lot of times they'll come back and share their stories. They're like, oh my gosh, I went over here to such and such and bought some heirloom tomatoes, took the multigrain, toasted it, and Made an amazing tomato sandwich.
Oh, see,
Great.
now I'm hungry.
Yeah, of
Now I'm
course,
thinking
yeah.
about, grilled cheese and tomato. Wow.
Yeah, so that is the huge value to us for the market, right? It gives us such insight into product that you really don't get otherwise, because we're really talking to the person who's actually eating the product. And I'll tell you what's amazing. The college students are amazing. I love it when these young kids come to the booth, and I can say that because I'm almost 60. I can say they're young kids. They come to the booth and they love the focaccia. That's always a hands down. Got any focaccia left? Got any focaccia left? Of course. But getting them to try stuff, they're always so excited to try stuff. And they don't always make it back every week because they're doing other things. But when they do come back, they're always very passionate about their response. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And I love the bad stuff as much as I hate to say that.
We talked a little earlier off mic about people's different levels of comfort with food adventure and what people are willing to try. So it sounds like you found the perfect group of people who would try something new. Yeah,
they do. They seem to be very open to it, right? And I think that comes from the fact that I do believe we're certainly in a foodie community. I mean, I can't think of what food you can't find in Bloomington, Indiana, right? Everything's available. Go down 4th Street and it's all there, right? So I think we're kind of inclined to have those people here. And people do get excited about food. It's kind of interesting because I'm always excited about food because that's what I'm doing for a living right now. But it intrigues me because people are quite passionate about it at times. And, especially when we do the sampling, someone's actually eating a slice right there at the booth. Like, what do you think? Oh, I'm getting some heat. Yeah, on the back of my, okay, yeah, that's really great. And texture's good. Just all those little things. I just love that stuff. I just appreciate someone willing to invest the time to stop at the booth, to try something, give me feedback. Everybody's time's valuable. Everybody's busy. And for them to take those few minutes and do that, I really, really do appreciate. I really do appreciate.
So if doing some tasting sounds like something you're into, then definitely stop by the Bloomington Community Farmers Market here in Bloomington, Indiana. It is open every Saturday, April through November at City Hall at 401 North Morton Street. And at the Farmers Market, you can find not only locally grown farm products, but also delicious baked goods by the Scholars Inn Bakehouse. Mr. Tracy Bruce, thank you so much for being in the podcast studio with us today.
Of course. Thank you for the invitation.
It's so great to hear your insight. And now I'm going to go out and find myself some sourdough bread. It sounds amazing.
Head off to Blooming Foods. There you go.
On behalf of the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Recreation Rendezvous. You can find Recreation Rendezvous where you find your favorite podcast. A big shout out, as always, to our audio engineer and podcast wizard, Caleb Poor, who makes this sound amazing. I'm Julie Ramey with the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department. And until next time, we'll see you again on Recreation Rendezvous.